Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jen Marples Show. Today, I've got a wonderful, beautiful guest. Her name is Stephanie Odell, and she is the founder and owner of Celebrate the Gray, which is a modeling agency, among other things. But her whole company is for and about women 50 plus. So we love that already. And so it includes models, content creators, and influencers. So she is all about empowering women 50 plus to go out there and, slay and be represented. And then also on the flip side, she works with companies to help place all these influencers and models over 50, real, true, bona fide women into advertising, TV and film, everything that you see, because you all know right now, we're not represented near enough. And so Stephanie is part of that movement to change that. So I'm going to let her go into that with us today. You're going to love everything she has to say. And she is not only a fabulous entrepreneur, she's a 6-year-old entrepreneur. So we're going to talk about entrepreneurship today. We're going to talk about women being represented all out there in the media, TV, film. And we're going to talk about all the things and how people aren't serving us and how they need to be serving us and how we need to change the conversation. So she is doing her part, I'm doing my part. And I think we're going to get riled up during our chat today because we had to cut ourselves off to actually start recording. So we're like, oh my God, we have so much to talk about because we're just, we just want to change the world. So that's it. It's a small goal, but we're gonna dig into that today. But Stephanie, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, we are trying to change the world, but it takes all of us to do it. I always say, we have a collective of women at Celebrate the Gray, 300 plus, and it's like my voice is one voice. I always describe it as, the Horton hears a who, Dr. Seuss. Like nobody heard Horton, but as soon as he got all the who's to come along and speak up, then they finally were heard. So it takes all of our voices to be heard and all of our stories, because my story may not resonate with somebody, but somebody within the collective story is really going to resonate with somebody that's sitting there on the sidelines, kind of figuring out, is this it for me? Like have I done all that I'm meant to do? We've raised our kids, we've had careers, we've had relationships, whatever it may be. So hearing someone else's story gives that woman the permission to think about aging differently and to think about positivity in aging and possibility in aging, and not the limitations that we're served so frequently in marketing and advertising and our friends and family, our society. So all of the above. But thank you for having me. And yeah, I Celebrate the Gray is for and about the 50 plus woman. I did not set out to open an agency. I had done fashion styling. I had left my career when my kids were born. I remember my daughter being 6 months and my son being almost 4, and sitting at my desk trying to write a newsletter for the company I was working for, and them trying to entertain them. I was working from home and thought, I'm not doing either of these well right now. I need to give one of them up. And I wasn't going to give my kids up. So I gave up my job and became a full-time mom, and thought, that was what I was put on this planet to do. And really felt my husband and I have raised really 2 kind, amazing kids. So I felt like if that's all I do, that is a really good thing in the world. But in my 40s, I kind of started to have those little thoughts in my mind. I said to myself, is this as good as it gets? And it was pretty good. I'm not saying my life isn't good, and we've built a really beautiful family and have a nice home, and I have a good relationship, so I'm very fortunate. But I did have those kind of questions in my mind: is this as good as it gets? But the problem was I didn't even know how to start. I didn't know what I was good at anymore. I didn't know what I was passionate about. So it was a scary situation, and a situation to me that I couldn't even wrap my brain around. And I remember doing a Oprah quiz in a magazine, and it's one of the things was tuning into what you loved when you were a kid and things that kind of filled you up. And it was a small starting point, and that was kind of the thing that I realized. Had always been more a let's get to the end and be successful. What's the goal? But this journey was really one of small, gradual steps, acceptance of new feelings I was having about who I was becoming, and being open to being vulnerable, I think, and asking for help, which I had learned being a mom that I didn't ask for help enough, which I'm sure many people can identify with. Um, so I went back to work. Was ran into a friend, and she was opening up the first Athleta store. Gap had bought Athleta, and Athleta is an athleisure line owned by the Gap. And so they were opening their first store, and she said, "Oh, I need to talk to you. I've been an athlete all my life." And she said, I need to talk to you because you're our customer." Think about that, like a brand actually saying, "You're our customer. I need to talk to you." Um, so I ended up going to work for Athleta and worked for them for 5 years, and found a love of helping women embrace their shape and understand their shape and learn how to dress their shape and not hide their shape because there's parts of their body that may have changed. And did that, work for Stitch Fix when they first launched, which is an online styling site, and just found a knack of really helping women see themselves differently. Had my own styling business. And then about 6 years ago, my older client said to me, "The fashion industry has forgotten us and we feel invisible." So that was my starting point. And I had a friend say to me, again, this was one of the key things I think in entrepreneurship, is talking to your friends and talking to those people that may see the version of yourself that you're starting to think about, and asking for help and advice. And I said, "I don't know. I just know there's something, either it's a fashion line. I don't know." She goes, "Talk to 100 women. Just find out what the reality of fashion is for them. Find out what the reality of aging is for them." And so I did. And I met these amazing, powerful, vibrant, strong women that were 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and you'll have these aha moments in your entrepreneurship journey, or your journey in your aging journey, that you really need to pay attention to. And one of those moments was, if I saw these women in marketing and advertising, I would personally feel completely different about my aging. They were finding such joy in what they were doing for themselves. There was a lot of self-care and self-discovery as they aged. And I just thought, wow, wouldn't that be amazing messaging to be given as you age, versus this, "You're not pretty enough, your hair is gray, your body, it doesn't look the same, you have wrinkles," whatever it may be. So I got some local press because we did a photo shoot. I had a great friend here in Bay Area a lot of people donated their time. And she donated her time, and a makeup artist donated her time. And we did a photo shoot with 6 of the women. And I saw that theory in practice. I saw these women in modern styling and hair and makeup that work for their skin see themselves differently. I mean, it was this moment of realization that this is what women need. They need to see people that look like them, sound like them, to give them that permission. So tried to find an agency to partner with, and I was told by the modeling agencies, "Look, we've got our 2 older models, and it's not really a demographic brands are interested in." And as you know, we represent trillions of dollars that are undervalued, underrepresented. So I went to small business, there's small business association that the state funds here in California. And I started taking classes. How do you start a business? What's an LLC? How do you, accounting? How do you even apply for an agency? I had to go through getting bonded and getting insurance. And those are all things that are not in my bandwidth and things I don't enjoy doing. But 6 years later, we have over 300 models, influencers, content creators. We work with brands to really understand who we are as a consumer. The collective is a very strong and powerful group of women that are very vocal and visible about who they are and how they're aging. And we're getting brands to take notice. I would say the brands that are really doing a fantastic job are those brands being started by the 40+ woman that knows the importance of authentic representation and storytelling with real women. That's big brands are coming to us and we're having the conversation. It's just they're still so hesitant to put money behind campaigns, but I think we're getting closer.
Wow. So there is so much there to unpack. So a couple different things. So one, kudos to asking for help because we talk about that a lot on the show. A lot. It's one of my platforms. We've got to ask for help because we are not going to wake up with an idea and know exactly how to implement it or execute it. So we need all sorts of help. So we need classes, we need friends, we need masterminds, we need coaches, we need all these types of things to help us get something off the ground. What I love so much about what's happening in this, we'll call it the midlife space and this renaissance, because we've been here the whole time and we are so many gazillions of women, if we're just to count just in the US, I think, what is it, like 40 or 50 million women in the US that are considered like
growing
menopausal
and
growing. And we have money to spend. We want solutions. We want to see representation. And yet, and you all, this is what Stephanie and I were talking about before we started recording. We're like, we got to start recording because we have so much to talk about. The fact that we're just being blatantly ignored, because if you would think just from a dollar perspective of somebody crunching spreadsheets and numbers and seeing where the money is and seeing what solutions are, just from that perspective, you think we'd be talked to. But then, of course, then we need to go the step further. So we don't want to be talked to with women who aren't us. Do you remember More magazine? Wait, was it More?
Mm-hmm. Leslie Jane Seymour, yeah.
Leslie Jane Seymour's magazine. Yeah. I remember reading that magazine. I would think I was even in my like 20s or 30s reading it because I just thought it was so smart and so interesting and just, showing women, killing it. It was so revolutionary at the time.
Yeah. But she was ahead of her time. She totally was. And she has Covey Club now.
Yes.
And she and I have done some work together and she's lovely, but she said, they had subscribers. I think they had over 1 million subscribers. I forget the numbers, but brands were not willing to put their product in the magazine.
It's just so shitty. It's just, there's no other word to describe it. I was like, looked at the ceiling for a second. I'm like, is there another word to describe it? I'm like, it's not. So I love, that things are changing and it's just gross. I'm like, come on. So it's like, I'm afraid to do it. But now fast forward today, now we're seeing models, older models in fashion shows and things like that. So I'm like, great, I'll take it. Actually, I had a friend on, Lizzie B. We actually we just had a conversation about this exact thing of representation in the media. And I think within a week, a couple of things had happened, like Sex and the City, the reboot. Carrie was like too afraid to talk about like a vaginal cream or something like on her podcast. I'm like, honey, I will talk about vaginal creams all day long. And we should be talking about them because if you're over 50, come on, we have vaginal creams. And then I think all the older supermodels, like our generation of supermodels like Cindy Crawford and everything, they were just on the cover of Vogue. And I remember there's a whole lot of hoo-hoo, like, oh, maybe they were airbrushed. But I'm like, at this point, I want to take it. I'm interested in your opinion too. It's like, I'm going to take right now, whoever is in this over 50 realm, however they want. If they airbrush them, I'd rather that they didn't, but let's start there because it starts at the top with the most well-known, and then it's going to trickle down to us. Because to your point with, More magazine, there wouldn't have been a 50 plus 55, 56-year-old Cindy Crawford in More magazine repping Revlon or whatever the products were at the time. So what are your thoughts about how women are represented, like from a macro level right now? Do you care that they're being airbrushed? Are you just happy that we have some representation also in film too? Because we love seeing like the Jennifer Anistons of the world, the Diane Keatons of the world out there. I'll stop talking. What are your thoughts on all that? Because I could go on forever.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of controversy and a lot of opinion about airbrushing in the Sports Illustrated with Martha Stewart last year and Gayle King this year. Yeah. And I say any representation in is a start. Like, we all know that magazines airbrush. They airbrush 20-year-olds. So that is just the reality of what magazine covers look like. But to have an 80-year-old in a bathing suit on a magazine, yes, it's a male driven magazine, and yes, she's in a bathing suit, but she looked beautiful, and she's a beautiful older woman. So that is a start, that there's some representation, and talk about the conversation around it and the exposure around it. So I think representation is great. I don't have a problem. The airbrushing thing, that's reality. I know that's happening. Would it be great if it wasn't? Yeah, but that's not in their mindset. To have them put an older model in both issues, quite a few older models, is a step forward in my mind.
I
So
agree, because it has to
yeah,
start at the top, and then we've got our actresses out there too, and I'm women supporting women, so I really don't care. And this is not going to be a conversation. I mean, I get Botox, whatever. I think everyone does what they do. I just
yeah,
think in general, it's showing that women over 50 are vital. Like, we don't somehow become less vital. We're smart. We're savvy. We can start businesses. We can do whatever the hell we want. I mean, that is why I'm doing this show. It's like, you're not too fucking old. That's the tagline here. You're not too fucking old to do anything.
right.
And so I love, and everybody loves, even talking to the younger women, everybody loves seeing these older women. It's very inspirational for the younger generations to see, like Iris Apfel, may she rest in peace. I mean, how wonderful and fantastic was her career trajectory. Starting, I think, was it like in her 80s, she started really going out and becoming this icon. And so we have two 80-year-old guys running for office, white guys running
Yeah,
for office. So why would we be put out to
right.
pasture if
That's a
that's
great
what we're
point.
looking at? It's like,
Yeah.
we don't. It's the patriarchy. Everyone's heard me rant and rave about it, and it's just the damn truth. So I think it's great, and I'm so thankful for what you're doing, because we need to keep. And oh God, what did you say? The Who's, the Who fan,
Yeah.
like all
Horton Hears a Who. Yep.
I love that, because it's, and I know we get in our own little world, we get fed our algorithms of, I get all women's empowerment and menopause and this, that, and the other, and women, over 40 kicking ass. So that's because that's what I tap into. But I realize everybody's not getting that
Right.
message. So we always have to be aware that, I talked to a friend and she's like, oh my God, my saggy knees, or this or that, or should I start a business? Clients who come to me that I'm working with, every single one of them has fear about judgment, and am I too old to do this? And it really takes a lot of work. So if we see women out there in media, if we see somebody who's 65, like rocking that bikini in that photo shoot, all those little things add up to, gosh, I can do it. I'm not too fucking old. Like, why the fuck not? It's just because
Right.
we've been told we couldn't do it.
Right. I think something you said that's really important is not hanging on to the things that you don't have. I don't have that. I don't have the education. I don't have the money. I don't have the expertise, whatever it may be. All the knowledge and wisdom you have is outweighs that. And the ability to ask someone to articulate what you're trying to do. And that's a big part of it too, in these small gradual steps to finding what you really want to do. When I started, it's taken me 5 years or so to even kind of fine tune. And I kept trying things and fine tuning. And I always listen to my gut of like, what fills me up. And when I speak about it, what excites other people, like what's resonating with other people. But, in the beginning, that asking for help, I remember DMing every gray-haired influencer model I could find and asking for help. How did, you're modeling, what are you paid? What's your contract look like? And they were so excited about the space being normalized and the space expanding that they were super generous with their time and their expertise, connecting me with people. So I think when you listen to your gut and you really go into a space that fills you up, and it doesn't have to be big or huge. It could be walking dogs, it could be taking classes, it could be helping your grandkids, whatever it is. I think women's intuition is something to really pay attention to.
I'm glad you said that. My podcast that's running right now as we are recording this with Shireen Etisam, we talked a lot about the intuition, and a lot of my guests have talked about it. And it's really important that we listen to our intuition. And you had mentioned something earlier that I wanted to mention, and that was, when we get to now, there were those threads that you're going to find if you really listen of
Mhm.
and I'll use myself as an example, that there's going to be these threads that we've had since we were young. You'd mentioned that.
Yeah.
I was always a gatherer. I was always the rallier. I always had tons of different groups of friends. I was always bringing people together. And I was the one when everyone graduated from college, helping everybody get jobs and writing their resumes. And this is how you land an interview. And then, I ended up in a PR career for 30 years. And so everything's kind of, catalyzing. And now I'm like, really I'm focused with all those skills, all those things that I naturally am like wired to do with who I want to do it for. And that's, midlife women. But I didn't come to that realization until I stopped and got quiet and listened. And you're like,
Yeah.
these are these through lines. Like it's been me my whole life.
Yeah.
It's been me my whole life. And so listening and getting quiet and not tamping it down, because the more you tamp it down, the more you're just going to kind of go through life and like you're asking those questions, like, is this all there is?
Yeah.
The other thing I
that
wanted to say is you mentioned about getting help and tapping into people. So I just want to underscore two things. You've got to tap into the right people for support. So you want to be tapping into women that are building and that are engaged and want to see you succeed. But you told me a story about when you were starting your business, how you got some, we'll call it negative feedback from somebody very close to you. Tell us about that and how you overcame it.
Yeah, in the beginning, I think of any journey, be it starting a career, starting a business, a relationship, you're going to hear a lot of opinions about what others think you should do. And that's true about dressing and about your hair and, all of it. But in the beginning, and in the beginning, for me personally, I had a lot of self-doubt, like I can't do this, like I don't have any experience, all the things I just said that we tend to use, I used. And I had a good friend that said, basically, you have a great life and great kids, a wonderful husband, and why do you want more? Like, why do you even want, why are you striving to create this? And in the beginning, I didn't even know how to articulate what it was. I just knew had started the blog. I was starting to kind of have these aha moments and this kind of realization, and back to the intuition, like listen to that and try not to let your community, your friends, your family, society talk you out of something that's feeling good, that's feeling like this might be my purpose at this point in my life, and I need to really see this through. And I had many moments of, you know, you have your peaks, your plateaus, your big down hills. And I a lot of times was like, why am I doing this? This is, would talk myself out of it. And then I think the driving force for me, yes, I had some friends that didn't support or didn't see the version of myself that I saw of myself, but I had my husband and my two kids that were my biggest cheerleaders. So to your point, look for those people that will cheer you on and see what you see. And you can find them on social media. I mean, social media has opened up a huge opportunity and community for women that wasn't there before. You start following people that resonate with you, that will lead to other people. DM people that interest you or something that they say really motivates you. Tell them. You may start a relationship or communication with somebody, and that could be the turning point for you taking an idea and a thought into some sort of action.
I'm so glad you said that, because I have mentioned that a lot on this show, and I mentioned that to clients. I mention it to anyone who will listen. There's a lot of negativity about social media. I personally love it for all the reasons you mentioned, because I've met so many people and become aware. You're a person I became aware of through social media. And it's a beautiful thing, because we can't get out to every single event. We're not always across the country. So we do have this opportunity to be connected to so many fabulous women. Of course, we have podcasts, so we can educate ourselves, we can meet people. I've had so many podcast guests on and met women through LinkedIn, and or I've met them through LinkedIn and Instagram, and established relationships. We've collaborated together. Some people, I've seen women go into business with each other. So there is this whole wonderful, beautiful amazing community out there. And I like to always say that if we have the mindset that we're looking for a supportive, beautiful community, that's exactly what we're going to find.
Yep.
So if you
That's
go out
for sure.
negatively and thinking, oh, women are catty and this is that and you know that, you're going to find that. But if you
Yeah.
come in going, I'm here in this room, I'm at this event, I'm going to make new friends and meet amazing women. Guess what? That's what happens.
Yeah.
And
And
so
if you feel deserving of it, right?
yes,
I think something too that you said that I want to just follow up with a thought is the through lines that we don't give enough credit to in our lives. And somebody said to me, I remember years ago in an interview that she felt, because she was telling me what she had done, and they were all such different things, but she said, I always feel like they're pieces of a puzzle. I don't know what that final puzzle looks like, but I know they're all going to connect at some point. And for me, what I'm doing now, all those through lines, all those puzzle pieces have come together, and you see the value of all the things you've done. Even the PTA president, even volunteering, my customer service work, all of those things that I liked and felt I was good at really have combined into what I'm doing now. But it was being open to seeing that and putting value on those things that I'd done that made the difference for me.
I love that. The whole value and worth and getting paid what you're worth. That's a
Yep,
whole
that's a whole
other
nother
that's a whole other conversation, another podcast episode. But there is, exercise women you guys all can go through right now. It's you write down sort of what you're good at, and you're going to see the, like we're talking about, these through lines of all the things that you're naturally good at. So yeah, if you've done the fundraisers at the schools, or if you planned the big events for your company or whatever it is, write that down in one column, and then you write down the other column what you like to do. So what you're really freaking good at and what you love to do, and then sort of cross them, and then all of a sudden you're going to find ideas for a business or ideas of ways or to add something in that you're not currently doing. And it seems very simple, but if you don't take actual time to do it, you're just going to keep going about your life. Because I remember when I did that exercise, because this is the thing we all do, we take for granted the things that we're really good at. Like, what, can everybody do that? Actually, no, they can't.
Right. And also your friends, asking your friends, what do you think I'm good at? What do you see as my strengths? In the very beginning of when I was starting to kind of think about, is there a career beyond motherhood for me? I had a small group with two other women, and we would meet once a week, and we would just give each other action items to go and do. It might be, oh, I'm going to research small business. How do you start a small business? Or I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to see about volunteering at the dog shelter, or, but just having an accountability partner. And also those friends to say, oh my God, you're so good at connecting people. Or you're so good at following through. It's like, oh, really? I take that for granted. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And there's a cost for that. So the thing that it's a natural, because we put in the 1,000 hours, there's that 1,000-hour theory. We put in the thousands of hours doing these exact things. I love this conversation because so many women listening are waiting for permission to do something, or they're sitting on something.
Right.
So I guess to summarize, like for the women who are, because then I want to get into some just kind of juicy little, crazy conversation about the patriarchy, just a little bit, because I have you. What would be, if someone's just right now sitting on something and marinating, starting to tap in, but is just really too scared to get started? What would be your top 3 pieces of advice to that woman?
Well, I'll give advice in a minute, but I have been saving this quote on my desk for about 3 months, and I want to say it because I heard it and I went, oh my God, that's what people need to kind of shift their mindset of and I always use my son as an example. In 3rd grade, he went from being disruptive in 2nd grade to enthusiastic in 3rd grade. So it's the words you put on the journey. Like someone said to me, they were thinking about quitting their job, but it was so scary to think about finding a new job. And I said, I think it's exciting. Think about all the possibilities. So words are super powerful, first and foremost, in your own brain. But somebody said this, stop sitting on your gift, get up, because there are things waiting for you. And I think that once you start to take a small step, and it may be DMing somebody, it may be, maybe it's a health thing, maybe it's going for a walk. It's amazing what the universe starts to give you. And each little step gives you confidence to take a bigger step and a leap. So don't think about taking that leap right now. Think about taking that small little step, and it may be something that you can manage right now. You don't have the time, the energy, the money, whatever it may be, but you can do one small thing towards what you're feeling. And maybe it's just doing research online. It's not anything big, but it's like it starts something, a catalyst of change.
I love that, because the little things add up to the big things. If we think about sort of some type of an end result, well, first of
Yeah.
all, you don't even know where it's going to go. You can have an idea of what you want to do, but you don't know. And that also, I get a little whimsical in that regard too, where you don't even want to put limits to what you want to do. So taking those little actions are really important.
Yeah.
They just build on each other, and then it keeps going, and you iterate, and you decide, oh, I don't want, you get more information, like maybe I'll go this way. Actually, that I didn't really like that, but now
Yeah.
I've done this thing, and now I'm going off in this different direction. So you ask any entrepreneur, I have been through that whole journey. My listeners have heard me talk about it. It's any of us. We all have the thing that we thought we were going to start with, and you pivot and you morph, and the more you talk to people, you create new things. And also, it gets to be fun. I think that's something that's missing. It gets to be fun. So I love your idea, or that quote that you said, of just changing the words of the
Yeah.
like, it gets to be exciting and it gets to be fun, and there is opportunity. And the only reason why we think there isn't, it's because of that how we started. It's the patriarchy and the people who told us that we need to be put out to pasture.
I think too, the other thing I remember in the beginning, and I don't know if you experienced this, number one question from most people was, not most people, but probably the people I was closest to, oh, how are you going to monetize that? And what's your business plan look like? And I'm like, I got no idea, and I have no idea. But at the end of the day, I was doing the blog, and I said, if all I'm doing is making someone see a woman be seen, and we have a great conversation, that's enough right now.
Mm-hmm.
So again, focusing on what you can be successful with right now, so you don't get discouraged and you don't think, how am I going to make $1,000 a month doing this? Like, if you can not have to make money in the beginning, and you can just kind of try some things and see what really feels good to you, that would be a huge suggestion too.
It's a great that's great advice. And I've talked to so many women about this too, and so many entrepreneurs. So there's two ways to go through it. If you're kind of sitting, you haven't done something for a while, take the time. Or if you're working full time, you still need to take the time, but add those pieces in kind of as a side hustle, if you will. I don't really love that term, but just start doing things on the side and then kind of see and test. And so you don't put a lot of pressure on yourself in this idea, so you don't kill it because it has to mean something and it has to make money right away. If you need to make money right away, that's probably not the way. The way to go. It is probably not to try something completely new. Like, lean into what you're really good at, you can make money at right now. Do that. That's fine, while you're testing out this other thing. So there's several ways to skin the cat, but the key message here is you just have to start. And we're giving you permission to start, because you're not too fucking old. Okay.
And have patience in it. I've never been a patient person, but I've learned patience and belief that it may not happen right now, but down the road, like people I've talked to 2 years ago, all of a sudden they're back and they're like, oh, I remember you and I remember what you're doing. And so I think it's having patience around that, and just believing in what you're doing.
Patience is undervalued, because you mentioned this before about just most of us had this career trajectory and we weren't really thinking about it. And it was about that end result and success and a promotion and the this and the that and the what, getting new clients, like whatever it was. And so I think we're wired, because it's the Western way to be wired, to achieve and grow and this and that. And there isn't any, no one said, be patient, but it's true. It's true, especially now when you're building something, especially a passion filled. I'm as impatient as they come. I'm competitive with myself, and I'm the first to admit it. And it's how I've been successful in the past. And I vowed that I'm going to do this new business and operate it differently. So it's more about allowing, attracting, building relationships, and knowing what's meant to come is coming on a timeline that I'm not in control of.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. So I think
Yeah.
that's really, it's really powerful advice. So what about, because I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, for the women out there who want to model and they want to, grow their influence and they want to step into this wonderful magical realm of, being a midlife influencer, a model, content creator, how does one go about doing that, Stephanie? Like, how do we do it?
Well, I think everybody does it on their own, in their own way. I mean, I think you have to be genuine and authentic. I say this to all the women that join Celebrate the Gray. I have a call with everybody that reaches out to me. If people are interested in Celebrate the Gray, there's an application on our website. You can go and look at all our models and our influencers and see the type of women. Many of the women have been models in the past, are models with other agencies, never modeled, but just feel really passionate about who they are and what they're doing and how they're aging. You can fill out an application, send in some pictures. I talk to everybody that reaches out to me. We are not a fit for everybody. We are a niche agency. We're a mission-driven agency. So we don't just work with any brand to work with any brand. So we're not money-driven, we're mission-driven. And the mission is to change the visuals and narratives on aging for women. So example, if a brand comes to us and says, like, a brand did come to us and say, we're doing a campaign, but the model needs to dye their gray hair permanently brown. And I said, no, we can't do that. That's against our mission. And the woman that had reached out to me was in her 30s. So we had this long conversation about who women want to be. And they don't desire aspirational marketing. They really want real storytelling marketing that shows women that look like them and sound like them. Well, then she came back probably about less than a year and said, oh, we're doing a gray campaign now. So, that's, for me, my part is education, and it's this patience, lesson in patience, and it's a slow burn, as I say, because it happens shoot by shoot. But if you are interested in modeling or being an influencer, many of the women join just as a model, and then they branch into influencer work or content creation. Be careful about who you align yourself with. Don't over promote just to promote and make money, because it will be very obvious to the consumer, the 50+ consumer, that is what you're doing. But when she sees you and hears about a brand that you're working with and maybe gets to meet the founder and why was the brand started, that is a great collaboration and partnership. So that's what we look for. Like, we just finished up a partnership with a Canadian skincare brand called Flow Jar, which I need to connect you with her because you would love to have her on your podcast, I know. But we did 4 Instagram lives with 2 models, and the models, one was in her 50s, I'm in my 60s, and the third was in her 70s. So we as a brand are really trying to make sure we represent age, we represent race, size, and even gender. We have a transgender model that's part of our organization, and I'd love to grow that space. So authenticity, that's what we're about, and that's what people that want to get into the space should be about. There's somebody out there waiting to hear your story and how you are aging and what your past and now present and future looks like, because it will resonate with her. So I always say, be as authentic as you can and just start sharing. Be careful about sharing your family. I tend not to share my family on my social. I would encourage you not to buy followers. There would be no engagement. Brands are looking for engagement. We've kind of pivoted out of the influencer space because it's really hard to get a return on investment for brands. We're more in the content creation because it's very hard for brands to find content that includes older women. So, working with a brand and creating content and awareness, just awareness in that space. We Celebrate the Gray also works with 2 photographers on senior stock photography. It's called Senior Stock Photos. because brands are looking for that stock photography and it's really hard to find or afford. So the collective actually is generating stock photography and they are getting revenue on it. So I'm constantly looking at how do I create revenue for Celebrate the Gray, for all the women that are part of the collective, and give brands a resource that is affordable. So that was a lot more than you asked, but I tend to do that, as we all do. So if you're, social media is a great space. It's a great space to connect with other women. If you're just starting out, DM other women that resonate with you. Ask, can we connect? I'd love to find out how you did what you're doing, and be as authentic as you can, and tell what your life really looks like, because all those parts are super important to somebody that's sitting on the sidelines trying to figure out, how the hell do I age when there's no one telling me? Maybe my mother or my grandmother or my aunt or my friends aren't aging the way I want to age, and I'm not seeing what the possibilities are, and I'm starting to buy into the messaging I'm given, but I don't want to.
I love that. Well, that's what this podcast is all about. We
Yeah,
talk about
and
it all
find
the time.
podcasts. Yeah, find podcasts like Jen's, and
Talk about
listen.
it all the time.
Yeah,
And so we're authentic. I mean, I probably overshare, but my whole mission, and everyone knows this who listens to this, it's like, if I can do it, you can do it. We're peeling back the layers. It's like, we all know this time in life can simultaneously be beautiful and fraught. We're all dealing with a lot of stuff, but two things can be true at once. And it's this glorious time. And, I think in so many women that are coming into my world, and I'm sharing them with everyone, sharing you with the world, that the more, I love this, the more we talk about it, the more we just really shed all the bullshit. It's just all the crap we've been fed from the patriarchy and growing up when we grew up, that we've got to be a certain way. This is the time to really step into who you are. Women are craving it. And I know it can be, it feels scary, because for all those other years, like, we couldn't show up as who we actually were at work and be promoted and do all the thing. We were playing by the rules. So we're recreating, or we are creating, I should say, our own rules right now. And we get to make it look however we want to make it look.
yeah.
Rock the gray, rock freaking purple dreadlocks, like, do whatever the fuck you want. Like, I'm so passionate about that. And so obviously everyone's listening to the show for this reason, because there's the only thing that's stopping us. Well, I was going to, two pieces. We stop ourselves, but also I know it's hard because of the messaging we've been given. So I thank you for, like, just being so honest about all of us stepping into that authenticity, because the more we do it, the more it's going to give somebody else permission to do it. And like, we're going to be all the who's out there. Like, I talk about it all the time. Like, I am proudly 54 and I say my age all the time. And we just have to go out and be loud and proud about it. And the more we do that, the more we make it okay for others to do it. And the more we change the narrative. So I could clearly talk to you all day, Stephanie.
Me too.
So alas, we must wrap it up, but I have one final question for you. And then of course you're going to finish the not too fucking old statement. So my final question is, what do you think the best thing is about being in midlife?
Freedom to be whoever the hell you want to be. And, not letting someone else define you, but letting yourself define you.
Love that. I love that. I just got chills. Okay, so you got to finish this sentence. I'm not too fucking old to
start something new.
Boom. Boom. I love it. So where can everybody find you? You mentioned filling out an application if anyone's interested in modeling, but just let everybody know where we can find you on all the socials and your website.
We are Celebrate the Gray, and Gray with an A. And that's everywhere on Instagram. CelebrateTheGray.com is the website. We have a private Facebook group, Celebrate the Gray Collective. If you're interested in joining and being part of that and wanting your voice and opinion to matter, you can apply to be part of that collective. But yeah, we're easy to find. And anybody has questions or wants to connect, feel free to DM me on Instagram, follow us on Instagram. We do a ton of Instagram lives, hope to do one with Jen in the future. I bring just really interesting women and allow other women to hear her story, because it's really easy to look at someone at the end or where they're at now and think, I could never do that. But then when you peel it back and you find out, oh, she sounds just like I do right now of how she started this whole thing. So just peeling back the layers, as you said, of the stories.
I love it. Exciting.
Yeah.
So we're going to link all of that in the show notes. But thank you for being on the show today. This has been such a great conversation, and we're partners in changing the conversation. So everyone join this party.
We need you and we want you.
We need you and you want you, and we're giving you permission to also just step out there and be whoever you want to be. Like you said, like we're not too fucking old, we're just not. So just believe
Yeah.
it and celebrate the gray. Oh, I did have one final question for you. I don't personally have a lot of gray hair. Thankfully, I take after my dad, not my mom. So do you only work with models that have gray hair, or celebrate the gray just sort of an overarching statement of 50 plus?
Great question. So as you can see, I am slowly going gray. I also am, I don't dye my hair, but it's ironic, but my gray is my body. I've been an athlete all my life, and changes in my muscle tone. So celebrate the gray is the gray of aging. If it, back to those words that we use, if we thought about gray, the gray of aging as a celebratory time to celebrate, would we age differently? Would we give ourselves different permissions? So celebrate the gray is all of aging. The model side, we really focus on gray. That doesn't mean I don't have other women in my database that aren't gray. That's why we also branched into influencer content creators that are just over 50. And also we started with 50 because I believe 50 is that very pivotal time. In my 40s, I still had kids. I still was very knee deep in doing things for my kids. But in my 50s, my kids left. Really menopause, that transition and body changes. So that's really why we focused on 50 and gray to begin with, because it's also the most visible thing as we age, that we're told you need to change the color of your hair if you want to be deemed beautiful. So visually, seeing women with gray hair that were beautiful was a powerful statement to start with.
It definitely is. Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
So
Thanks for
everyone,
asking.
so everyone, you're going to go stalk her and be part of Stephanie's world and celebrate the gray. Again, that'll be all linked in the show notes. But thank you so much for being here today. It has been a delight, and I look forward to many continued conversations.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great conversation.